I want it all. I I want to know the rights to that song. Can't be cheap. That's a Queen song, and
And do
we're
you think they
hearing it
have to pay?
on.
Sorry.
We
Yeah.
can't sing
Hey,
more
it's
than
good to
that
know now,
because
Dan, it's good to know now, Dan, we're going to get slapped with copyright infringements for
Yeah,
not
no, no,
clearing
no,
that
seriously.
up for everybody.
Do they
no.
have
Well
to
done.
pay more for each round? How does that work?
Oh, it was a buy. They would have
No.
said, "Okay, we're playing this until people are sick of it." Hi, I'm Dan. That's Kyle. That's Todd. It is game one of the World Series tonight. Jays, Dodgers. We have the rosters to go through. We have the Dodgers being favorites. Let's start with the rosters. The big addition: Bo Bichette is back. So is Ty France, and Yariel Rodriguez has been taken off. So those are the big adds and subtractions. Todd, does this move the line at all with Bo being back?
I think Joe Carter walking through that door might help some of the vibes for the Blue Jays going into this World Series more than Bo Bichette. But look, it's a nice luxury to have when you can add his kind of offensive production back into the fold. We know he's not exactly a plus defender by any stretch of the imagination, but anytime you can bring a bat like that, even one that's been out of commission for the last couple of weeks, it can only serve to help. I think the bigger question that'll have to be answered, as you guys know all too well, how do the Blue Jays go about cobbling together a pitching staff to get 27 outs on a night in, night out basis from not just their starters, but their bullpen, which has been a little bit more of an Achilles heel than we thought coming into the postseason.
Yeah, Todd, we talked to Keegan Matheson just the other day about whether the Jays would go with 12 or 13 pitchers. They've chosen to go with 12. Will that bite them in the ass?
Look, you hope you don't have to get that deep into the rotation the way the schedule sets up. But, they apparently feel they need an extra bat or two in the mix to try and compete with this high-powered Dodgers offense. The one thing I will say, guys, no matter how the Blue Jays perform offensively, it's going to be a little bit better than what the Dodgers had to deal with in the form of the Milwaukee Brewers, who more or less look like a 12-year-old going to the batting cage, trying to crank that speed up to high, hoping and praying that they were going to make a little bit of contact, because that was arguably the most pathetic offensive display I think we've ever seen in a championship league series.
Ty Yesavage gets the ball for the Blue Jays in game one. I have not looked, but this will be his seventh pro game. This will be his seventh game in the majors. Is he the pitcher with the least amount of big league experience starting a game one for a team? It's got to be, if it's not the one, it's got to be close to being the least amount of experience.
No doubt. It's something that when you're looking at this Blue Jays team and the way they decided to go about this, that clearly it factored in that sometimes ignorance is bliss more than anything else. And when you put a young kid out there who doesn't have that pedigree, hasn't logged a ton of big league innings, that, you know what, you tell them just go out there, be loose, go out there and try and give it your best. And look, there's a reason that the Jays are substantial home underdogs in this spot. Blake Snell has been the Dodgers ace, and not only is Snell out there with his tremendous strikeout stuff that we always knew he had, I mean, this is a guy that Kevin Cash pulled in, the fifth inning of a World Series game in a pivotal juncture when he was a member of the Rays. Snell's now going deeper into games, so it'll be interesting to see what happens here. And I don't want to say Yesavage is the sacrificial lamb here, but you can play a little bit loose and free. You brace that underdog mentality. And I actually think there's a little bit of gamesmanship taking place using him instead of leaning into one of your more savvy veterans to get this series started on the right foot.
Guys, what does Yesavage do for the rest of his career? He started in single A ball, and now he's starting game one of the World Series. In his first year in the bigs, he hasn't even been in the big leagues for 2 months.
Hey, you know what it reminds me of, Toolsy? It's all those college hockey players that come fresh off their college season that get thrown into a Stanley Cup potential winning roster, and they're out there playing in the highest leverage games of their entire career. And then the organization says, you know what, you get to run it back, you get to go through a training camp, and you get to see how meaningless the 82 regular season game grind is after you've just played in the Frozen Four and you've gone right into the heart of a playoff race.
Todd, I'm curious about World Series prop bets. For example, I've been laddering pitcher strikeout totals quite often, especially when Yesavage is on the mound with the Dodgers pitchers. Obviously, the Blue Jays' offensive performance. How does a lot of that change with the pressure of the World Series? Is there still good looks at prop bets at this stage of the game?
What I think is going to be interesting, Kyle, when you try and assess how some of those strikeout numbers are going to look, the strength of this Blue Jays team all season long has been their ability to put balls in play. So I want to see if odds makers continue to use some of those gaudy numbers that we've seen around the Dodgers starters throughout this postseason, looking for them to have 7, 8, 9, 10 strikeouts in each appearance. Because if the Blue Jays stay true to their DNA, they're going to make these Dodgers pitchers work. They're going to put balls in play. They're going to try and tax the defense. And while I'm not going to say it's a superpower by any stretch of the imagination, it's something that is vastly underrated in Major League Baseball in this analytics era. And the reason I can say that is because I've watched my beloved Yankees in the postseason continue to go home run or bust. They don't know the idea of what it means to actually put a barrel on the ball and put it in play so a team has to field and throw you out rather than just going up trying to swing for the fences in every single plate appearance.
Speaking of the Yankees, Yankee great Don Mattingly. There was two shocking things that I've discovered in this Jays run. That Alejandro Kirk is only 26, and that Don Mattingly has never been to a World Series as a player or manager. This is his first time. I found that shocking, and he is embracing it as he spoke with Mike Francesa yesterday.
Is it in Toronto right now for the Blue Jays?
Oh, it's incredible. This team has really captured not only the city, but the country. And by the way they play, we've had over 50 come from behind wins. These guys don't quit. The way we play, and I'll say we, but I'm going to say really the players, the way these guys go about their business, it looks like Sandlot. When you watch Sandlot, those kids play, it's like they're having fun. And if you see them on the bench and you hear them down there, they are a unit. They play ball, and the fans have gravitated to these guys. And it's been really fun to watch. So Canada is on fire for these guys.
So they beat the Yankees. Now they can beat Donnie Baseball's other team, the Dodgers. Are they going to win this one for Donnie Baseball?
Hey, look, I guess we'll see what's going on there. But, Don Mattingly for me was the most recognizable Yankee growing up. In the 80s, the Yankees were somewhat irrelevant. And he was the only guy that was a fixture on teams that consistently lost more games than they won. I'd love nothing more than to see him have a chance to get to the top of that baseball mountaintop, even if it is as a member of the Blue Jays. And I think it's been a phenomenal story to see how the Blue Jays have gone out there and performed. Guys, back in early May, this team was a massive favorite to miss the playoffs. They've kind of ridden the wave. They've cobbled together a pitching staff. They're coming up with timely hits. And no greater illustration of what this season has been for Toronto than George Springer coming up to the dish with a picture-perfect swing and putting that ball into the bleachers, with a 3-run home run that catapulted them to this point in the season.
Tonight, Todd, the Dodgers on Bet Rivers are minus 157. The Blue Jays plus 132, and the over-under is set at 7.5, I believe. Is that fair? Do you like those numbers? Does that seem about right to you?
Yeah, I can understand why the Dodgers are relatively heavy favorites in this spot. You look at the series price as well. They're north of $2. So odds makers not giving them much of a chance here. And even on the adjusted series line, the Dodgers right now at Bet Rivers minus a game and a half. You have to lay a price tag, anywhere between minus $1.20 upwards of minus $1.30. The total, I think, is interesting. And for me, I'd make a slight case to go over here. Look, Blake Snell has been phenomenal, but I think he's going to encounter a little bit more of a challenge in this spot than what he's seen in previous series. And on the flip side of things, let's see how the young kid is able to control his emotions. Sometimes that gets the best of you. You're a little bit wild early on in the game. And it wouldn't surprise me, gentlemen, if baseball taking center stage on a Friday night, there was a little bit more jump in those baseballs than what we'll see the deeper we get into the series.
My good friend Kevin Burkhardt and the Fox crew will be in Toronto. So you'll have David Ortiz, Derek Jeter, Alex Rodriguez. And if you see them eating poutine, because they always like to do crazy, wacky things like that, I'm going to take full credit because I told Kevin in a text, I said, please eat your weight in poutine. So is there a prop bet on what Canadian food? Because there's not really a lot, maybe a beaver tail. Will they try a beaver tail? Will they try poutine? Are there prop bets on what the Fox crew, what Canadian delicacy will they eat?
I mean, look, Dan, we go a little bit ways back with Kevin Burkhardt. If he eats too much poutine, is he going to be able to fit into those perfectly tailored suits? And how angry will the wardrobe department at Fox be with him if game one he fits into one size and they have to give him a little bit more breathing room and not only his dress shirt, but potentially his pants ahead of game two? But look, maybe we make Timbits the odds-on favorite for what they're going to have at the desk to kickstart things. You know, maybe there's a good Canadian Pilsner on the desk as well. Look, there are so many good options that are there. I'm just not sure I have Kevin Burkhardt pegged as a poutine, eat your weight in poutine guy. But look, upsets happen every day in sports, and maybe that's something that's going to catch us all by surprise ahead of game one.
How about the MVP odds? Ohtani's at plus 140. Vladdy's at plus 550. Vladdy's been the more consistent throughout the playoffs, but there's going to be a lot of pressure on these guys. Who else is a little further down that line that you could maybe pull a trick out of a hat or whatever the saying is? Rabbit? A rabbit?
Wait, hey, look, I mean, they pull tricks out of hats all the time in Vegas, but that typically happens after midnight right behind the stratosphere. But in terms of the MVP market and the direction we'll go there, look, it's hard to make a case for a favorite, although I don't necessarily see a path for the Jays if Vladdy Guerrero isn't their best player going forward. But for the Dodgers, there's still so much star power in this roster. And if I'm going to make a case for a guy not named Shohei Ohtani, there's two. And it's not going to be names that'll surprise anybody. It's Freddie Freeman being one. We've seen him typically elevate his level of play in some of the most meaningful games of his career. And, of course, Mookie Betts being the other. So those are two guys that if you want to veer clear of Shohei Ohtani, that I think are more than capable of putting this Dodgers team on their back offensively and carrying them across the finish line to what potentially could be back-to-back World Series championships.
Mookie Betts is now just all-star shortstop.
Look, it's a guy that has embraced the mentality of being a middle infielder above all else. But the best story about Mookie, though, I'm sure you guys are well read.
The scowl, how he has a constant scowl on his face.
He does always look angry. I'll give him that much. But this guy is so committed to his nutrition that when he travels outside of the season, he basically brings a suitcase so he can steer clear of some of those other temptations. He is that committed to what he puts into his body. It's a level of commitment and self-discipline that the three of us will never know.
Todd, did he not start this season with major nutritional problems and tons of weight
loss? I wasn't going to bring that up in terms of what supplement potentially might have been spiked to create some of the issues that made him lose all the weight that he did. But, different discussion for a different day, and it doesn't quite fit with the narrative or storyline we're trying to sell.
Fair enough.
It's the J.J. Watt approach where we had him once when the Super Bowl was in Houston, and he came on and he said, I knew that my window for a playing career was 10 years and I was going to devote every single ounce of my being for 10 years to my chosen profession. And when you boil it down to a pro athlete, it seems like, okay, I could do that. Although that's a pretty lengthy career. Maybe that's what more athletes should adopt. Just all in.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds simple in theory.
But it sounds really boring.
Yeah, I don't think it's the exciting lifestyle that anybody really wants to try and lead in any capacity. And look, J.J. Watt dealt with a rash of injuries in the latter portions of his career. So I do worry about his training methods and the amount of stress that he put on his body, and along with the eating habits that he chose to adopt, because he spent a lot more time missing games in the twilight of his career, unfortunately, than he did disrupting them early on.
Todd, give us a prediction. How do you think the World Series is going to go? How many games? Who wins?
Look, I want to sit here, guys, and make a bold proclamation that the Blue Jays are going to shock the baseball world, but is that necessarily the way I would be betting it? Probably not. I think that the Dodgers find a way to win this series. It goes 6 games, but we'll say the Dodgers win 4-2, but I do hope I'm wrong.
Let's take a peek at the NFL because I haven't, because I've been focused on the Blue Jays. I've been watching every Jays video on YouTube, and I tear up whenever I see Vladdy Jr. as a little kid out there on the field with his dad. We're going to see a lot of that. But all I know in the NFL right now is there is no clear favorite. Take out the I know everyone's going to say the Chiefs are the favorite, but aside from the Chiefs, who is second? Because are the Chiefs still best odds?
Yeah, Chiefs have the shortest price tag now. They're number one in my power ratings, and the rich kind of get richer with the return of Rashee Rice to make this offense that much more dynamic. And it's a defense that's not going to be asked to win games. So if their stop unit can be just average, remember, this is a group that was built to play with leads, pin their ears back, and come after opposing quarterbacks. So unfortunately for those folks that can't stand Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes, any of their family members, spoiler alert, if they stay healthy, they are the best team in the National Football League. The AFC, though, for me, guys, appears to be a muddled mess after them. Look, I know a lot of us thought the Bills were finally going to be able to break through, but they have questions they have to answer coming out of their bye, where they're a heavy favorite against Carolina. The Baltimore Ravens sit at 1-6, but if they get healthy, there is a legitimate path, or 1-5, a legitimate path for them to potentially get back to relevance, and it's a side that nobody would want to see. And while New England has been a great story, I don't think they're a legitimate Super Bowl contender with the way the roster is constructed. Where I think it gets fascinating is in the NFC, because you can kind of throw a blanket over a number of teams. And whether you want to sit here today and make a case for the Eagles, you want to make a case for the Lions, the Rams, the Packers, I'd be hard-pressed to argue with you on any of those sides. It's always a war of attrition. So I think the NFC is where it's going to be much more fascinating to watch who emerges atop the heap there. But Kansas City still is the best team, or I guess I should say now power-rated number one in the league for me.
The Buffalo Bills are in Carolina this week. They're 7.5-point favorites. I feel as though 3 or 4 weeks ago that line would have been much wider, but they've been a bit of a mixed bag. How do you feel about that one?
Yeah, Buffalo kind of trending in the wrong direction going into the bye, riding a 2-game losing streak, having dropped that Sunday nighter as a substantial favorite against New England. And of course, the following week on Monday Night Football, not really competitive for the better part of 4 quarters against the Falcons. And in steps a Carolina team that's now over 500. They've been very good at home with some pretty impressive wins. But you'd have to think, given the track record of Sean McDermott coming off of the bye, the Bills have fixed some of those things that plagued them. But I do worry about their ability to win by margin. It's a passing attack that leaves a lot to be desired. They should be able to run the football, at least I would hope, in this spot. And we'll see if they get some reinforcements back along the defensive side as we await the final injury report for the week. Am I going to make a case for laying the lumber here with Buffalo? Absolutely not. But if you do want to get involved in this game, I think the Carolina Panthers will have some success running the football. And Rico Dowdell's over-under for longest rush, kind of right in that 12.5, 13.5 range. I think he can find a way to rip off an explosive, even if Matt Milano, Terrell Bernard, and Ed Oliver are full goes for the Bills.
Hey, Furzy, every week when I point out the highest total of the week, pretty sure it's hit every single week. Last week it was the Cowboys and Commanders at 55.5. The final score, Cowboys 44, Commanders 22. That's insanity. This week, the highest total is once again the Cowboys. It's the Cowboys and Broncos at 50.5. Does the trend continue? Does the highest total of the week go over?
And Toolsy, I think in that Cowboys game, there were only 3 points scored in the fourth quarter. So the lion's share of offensive damage was done in the first 45 minutes. We're starting to get to a point with the Cowboys where I can't just go rinse and repeat and look to bet their totals over. I mean, this number opened 47.5. We're now out to 51. And at least in theory, Denver's going to provide a little bit in the way of resistance defensively. Although you wouldn't know that when the Broncos had to step up in class and gave up crooked numbers against the Indianapolis Colts earlier in the year. But Denver's offense, for me, leaves a little bit to be desired. I mean, we shouldn't be fooled by their offensive outburst in the fourth quarter last week against the Giants. I mean, they were shut out through 3 quarters. So it's not a game that I've bet under, but I'm not going to sit here and make an over. Although the one thing I will say for the Cowboys, they're the NFL's closest equivalent to a team that's looking to play pond hockey every single Sunday.
Speaking of those Giants and their epic collapse last weekend, they're in Philadelphia taking on the Eagles. Philadelphia's a -7.5-point favorite. This Giants team is sneaky, though, and that line, that could be a little bit tricky for bettors, couldn't it?
This is a favorite I actually like, Kyle, and I laid the points here with Philadelphia. I show value on the Eagles all the way up to 8.5 in this spot. Now, it is important to monitor the injury report. A.J. Brown logged a DNP both Wednesday and Thursday, so we'll see if he is a full go dealing with a hamstring injury. But this is an interesting number when we consider just a few weeks ago, Philadelphia went on the road on a Thursday night football game, closed a 7.5-point favorite, and were absolutely embarrassed by these very same New York Giants. Here we are, fast forward a couple of weeks, and the Eagles are back at home, laying the same number against the Giants team that had their guts absolutely ripped out in improbable fashion against the Denver Broncos. It's also the first time in his very short NFL career that Jackson Dart will be facing the same defense for a second time. So you have to believe that Vic Fangio will throw some very unique looks at Dart that they didn't the first time around. I think this game, it's a little bit of buyer beware with the underdog. Philadelphia comes out, makes a statement. You feel more comfortable laying a big number if A.J. Brown is a go, but even if he's not there, I think Philadelphia found a little bit of something in their passing attack, and this Giants defense is banged up. Could be without Brian Burns, Paulson Adebo, and Javon Holland as well.
The further the season moves along, the worst team to beat each week now is the team playing the New York Jets, because you don't want to be the team that the Jets win their first game against. This week, it's the Bengals. Does it happen?
I mean, we still don't know who the Jets are going to start at quarterback. I mean, their owner, Woody Johnson, makes a big stink, and then we find out that Tyrod Taylor is day-to-day with a knee injury. Aren't we all, as 40-plus-year-old men, that it feels like Tyrod Taylor is at this point in his NFL career? This is a Cincinnati team, buyer beware if you're going to look to lay points with them, given some of their defensive shortcomings, although the group should be a little bit better here with Trey Hendrickson. Don't love the fact that one of the anchors of that defense over the last handful of years is requesting a trade in Logan Wilson, but not a great matchup either for the Jets. If Sauce Gardner can't go against this passing attack, but laying points with bad football teams, not an area that I typically live in. I would make a slight case for the Jets, especially if this number got to 7. Not sure I'm emboldened to back them on the money line, but the prospect of selling this bad Bengals team at the top of the market may be a little bit too tantalizing to pass up.
Is Rich Gannon not available? Didn't he used to always get called by teams?
I mean, look, Rich Gannon is probably making too much money at this point in his career with the illustrative media empire that he's building, doing radio on NFL, on their Sirius channel, and a variety of other avenues. I mean, does he really want to get out there and be the starting quarterback for the Jets at this point in his life? I'm not sure anybody should want to be the starting quarterback for the Jets.
If memory serves, didn't Gannon have an arm like Uncle Rico? He could throw it over a mountain.
I mean, Gannon could throw, and I'm sure somewhere out there, wherever Rich Gannon calls home, that he could go out there on a high school football field and be able to throw the ball right through a defender's chest if need be.
One last one, Todd. Classic matchup. The Packers are heading into Pittsburgh as a 3-point favorite.
These are the games that Mike Tomlin has kind of made his living. He loses games that he shouldn't, and he wins games that he shouldn't. So I think Pittsburgh is a live home underdog here, catching the 3. Green Bay's a team that's been tough for me to try and grapple with because I watch them week in, week out, and I don't come away impressed. And then I dig into their numbers, and I know football is not played on a spreadsheet, nerd alert, whatever you guys want to say. And Green Bay passes every test that you look for from an underlying metric standpoint. But I think this is where we could see a little bit of Tomlin magic. Aaron Rodgers matched up against that familiar Green Bay G on the other side. And the mini buy, in my opinion, will do well for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I'll make a case for the Steelers plus the 3 to pull off the slight home upset against Green Bay.
If you saw what Todd is wearing, he's wearing a Buffalo Sabers t-shirt. There's a reason for that. It's the Sabers and Leafs tonight in Buffalo. Usually you get a lot of Leafs fans because the tickets are a lot cheaper, but with game 1 of the World Series, I don't know if that's going to happen. Who are you taking? Sabers and Leafs.
You tell me, is this Leafs team going to play like a cohesive unit, or are we going to have more players speaking out to the media about things that aren't going well so far? Interesting for the Leafs in this spot. Dealing with some injuries on the blue line. Chris Tanev, we know, won't be available. Morgan Riley officially listed as a game time decision. Haven't had a chance to see if he was out there for the morning skate. And
he's officially out.
Okay, so you're down 2 of your top 4 on the blue line. I know the Sabres haven't exactly been lighting up the scoreboard, but they are starting to play with a little bit more confidence. Alex Lyon going to get the nod. Hat tip, by the way, to Colton Ellis, winning his NHL debut, becoming the 8th starting goalie. And I thought this number was a little low to be born and raised in Nova Scotia. I think the Sabres are a live home underdog. But the one good thing that has come out of all of this for the Leafs, gentlemen, is that Vladdy Guerrero Jr. went into a winner-take-all Game 7 situation and wore an Aston Matthews jersey, and they were actually to prevail in that kind of situation.
We were terrified.
If there's anybody that can break this long-standing legacy or lack thereof for the Toronto Maple Leafs, it's someone that comes with the lineage for Canadian baseball like Vladdy Guerrero Jr. can, Because look, we know that Austin Matthews isn't going to win a winner-take-all Game 7 that means much. So at least Vladdy could do it in AM 34's honor.
Buddy, when he saw Vladdy wearing that jersey, sent me a picture with the text, "We are effed."
I have never
look, I can
received so many
understand
messages.
I can understand the skepticism, but he tempted the fates, questioned the mojo, and it was George Springer delivering on the big stage to get the Blue Jays into the Fall Classic.
Well, that must be a futures bet by Vladdy, because certainly nothing good has come of it for the Leafs since. Not that they've played a lot, but they do not look good. Do you see more of the same tomorrow night when they reverse the home and play in Toronto?
Look, I mean, they're probably, well, you're not probably, you're going to get a much better price with the change in venues for the Sabres. I'm interested to see what direction Buffalo goes. I mean, I know UPL was recalled, so my feeling is that we're going to see him in net. I typically don't like to back a goalie that, has been on a rehab stint, making his first start at the NHL level with players, obviously, that are faster, bigger, and stronger than what he saw. So no strong opinion for me in the game tomorrow. Typically in these home and homes, I like to back the team that lost Game 1. So maybe if I'm betting the Sabres tonight at an underdog price and they come up short, maybe I'll run it back if the number's big enough for essentially Game 2 tomorrow night against the Leafs.
Furzy, thanks for this. What Canadian food are you picking that the crew's going to eat, by the way?
Look, I just think we should go to Old Reliable. I mean, we're trying to get creative in all of this, but what would be better than to see Derek Jeter, Alex Rodriguez, David Ortiz, and Kevin Burkhardt sidle up to that studio with a shot of maple syrup there to kick things off and really do it the right way.
That's the move.
Thanks, buddy.
Always a pleasure, guys.
Thanks, Todd.
Kyle, what do you pick, and what do you think they're going to taste? They will taste something. They will eat something Canadian.
I think it kind of has to be poutine, Dan. I sort of agree with that. I don't think they're going to sit there and do shots of maple syrup, although that would be fantastic.
It is delicious. Have you ever done a shot of maple syrup?
Yeah. I'm not too embarrassed to admit that I've done it more than once. But they're also talking on camera, and that creates kind of a gummy, sticky situation in the mouth. So maybe they'll go syrup and poutine. Maybe they'll go poutine with syrup on it. Something I have also had. No. There's a situation in which that's not